I met Lauren on a rainy October evening during our first year of college. It wasn't one of those cinematic meetings where time slows and dramatic music plays in the background, but rather an awkward, spontaneous moment that turned into something unexpectedly meaningful. I had gone to a small cafe near campus, hoping for a quiet night with a warm cup of coffee and my notes. Midterms were approaching, and the stress was unbearable. The cafe had a rustic charm, soft yellow lighting, the scent of roasted coffee beans thick in the air, and a small stage where a local band was playing. I wasn't paying much attention to the music until I heard a frustrated sigh from the girl at the next table. "They're butchering this song," she muttered under her breath, shaking her head in disapproval. I glanced at her, amused. She wore a loose Nirvana t-shirt, ripped jeans, and combat boots that had seen better days. Her dark brown hair was tied into a messy bun, and she tapped her fingers against the table in frustration. I hesitated before responding, but the urge to agree was too strong. "Yeah, 3 times in a row? That's dedication to failure." She turned to me with a grin, as if I had passed some kind of test. Without hesitation, she grabbed her cup and slid into the seat across from me. "I'm Lauren," she announced, sticking out her hand. I blinked at her boldness before shaking it. "Nice to meet you." She laughed. "That was your cue to introduce yourself." "Oh, right. Wait, don't tell me. Let me guess." She leaned forward, studying me with exaggerated scrutiny. "You look like the type who has a color-coded planner, probably an overachiever, and definitely hates group projects." I raised an eyebrow, both impressed and slightly horrified at how accurate she was. "Okay, that's actually freakishly spot on." She smirked. "I have a gift." And that was how it started. From that night on, Lauren and I were inseparable. We didn't just become best friends, we fit into each other's lives as if we had been missing pieces of the same puzzle. We bonded over music, spending hours dissecting lyrics and debating which albums were masterpieces and which were overrated. We explored the city together, discovering hole-in-the-wall diners, late-night bookshops, and hidden parks where we could escape the chaos of college life. She dragged me to concerts where we screamed lyrics at the top of our lungs, and I helped her cram for exams she had forgotten about until the last minute. I was the responsible one, the planner, the problem solver, the one who always made sure we had a backup plan. Lauren, on the other hand, thrived in chaos. She was spontaneous, reckless at times, but always full of life. Despite our differences, we balanced each other out perfectly. By the time we graduated, we knew our paths would be different. I had a clear goal: I was going to law school, no matter what. I had spent years dreaming of becoming a lawyer, and I wasn't going to let anything derail me. Lauren, however, had no interest in structured careers. She dabbled in photography, experimented with travel blogging, and eventually found herself immersed in the world of social media. At first, I didn't understand it. The idea of making money by posting photos and videos seemed bizarre. But Lauren thrived in it. She had a natural charisma that drew people in, and within a few years, she had built an impressive following. Despite our vastly different lifestyles, we never let distance or ambition pull us apart. We made a promise: no matter how busy life got, no matter how overwhelming our careers became, we would always make time for each other. Weekends became sacred. Every Saturday, without fail, we would meet, sometimes for brunch at our favorite cafe, sometimes for a lazy movie night at my apartment, and sometimes for spontaneous road trips just because we could. Even when my job became more demanding, when I found myself drowning in case files and court dates, Lauren refused to let me disappear into my work. "Just because you're a fancy lawyer now doesn't mean you can ditch me," she'd say, showing up at my office with takeout and a playlist of our old college songs. She was my escape when the pressure of my career became suffocating. And I was her anchor when the unpredictable world of social media left her feeling lost. We weren't just best friends, we were family. I celebrated every one of her victories, no matter how small. Whether it was a brand deal, a viral post, or reaching another milestone in her online career, I was always there, cheering her on. And she did the same for me, never missing a single achievement in my legal career. Through relationships, heartbreaks, successes, and failures, we stood by each other. When I got my first real case as an attorney, she showed up with champagne and a ridiculous speech about how I was going to change the world. When she went through a terrible breakup, I spent an entire weekend watching bad reality TV with her, eating way too much ice cream, and reminding her that she deserved better. No matter what life threw at us, we had each other. I never once doubted that. Not when I got married. Not when she found love. Not when we started building our own separate lives. We were unbreakable. Or so I thought. I had always believed in fate, not the kind written in the stars, but the kind that sneaks up on you in the least expected moments. Meeting Daniel was exactly that. It was supposed to be a simple girls' night. Lauren had dragged me out to a bar downtown, insisting I needed to live a little after spending too many late nights at the office. I had resisted at first, claiming exhaustion, but she had worn me down with her usual persistence. "You work too much," she had said, flipping through my closet as if she owned it. "One night of fun won't kill you. And who knows? You might meet someone." I rolled my eyes. "I'm not looking to meet anyone." "That's because you never look," she teased, tossing me a dress that I hadn't worn in months. "Humor me, okay?" I gave in. The bar was buzzing with energy when we arrived. A live band played classic rock covers, the air was thick with the scent of whiskey and perfume, and groups of people filled the space with laughter and conversation. Lauren, always the social butterfly, had a knack for pulling people into her orbit. She led me to a small group near the bar, seamlessly introducing me as if I had been part of their circle forever. And that's when I met him. Daniel. He wasn't the loudest in the group, nor did he try to be the center of attention. But there was something about him, the quiet confidence, the easy smile, the way his dark eyes seemed to study me as if he was trying to figure me out. "You don't seem like the type who enjoys bars," he said, leaning in slightly so I could hear him over the music. I smirked. "What gave it away?" He gestured toward my hands. "No drink. No phone. And you keep checking the time like you have somewhere better to be." I let out a small laugh. "Busted." He chuckled, his expression warm. "So, what's keeping you here?" I glanced toward Lauren, who was busy laughing with someone across the room. Then I looked back at him. "Fate, I guess." His smile deepened. "Well, in that case, I'm glad fate brought you here." We talked for the rest of the night. About everything. About nothing. It was effortless in a way I hadn't expected, as if I had known him forever. By the time the bar started to clear out, he asked me if he could take me to breakfast. I said yes. That was the beginning. 5 years later, Daniel and I were married. It wasn't the kind of marriage people wrote love songs about. There were no grand romantic gestures or over-the-top declarations. Instead, it was built on quiet moments, on mutual respect, on the certainty that we were better together. He understood me in a way no one else ever had. He saw the parts of me that I kept hidden from the world, the doubts, the insecurities, the relentless need for control, and he loved me anyway. We built a life together. A beautiful, happy life. But there was one thing missing. A child. We had been trying for years, hoping, praying, doing everything we could. But each failed attempt, each doctor's appointment, each negative test felt like another weight pressing down on us. I saw it in Daniel's eyes, the way his smile dimmed, the way he avoided conversations about the future. And as much as I tried to reassure him, to tell him that we would be okay no matter what, I couldn't deny the ache in my own heart. The what if? The fear that maybe, just maybe, we would never get the chance to be parents. It was a quiet sorrow, one that we didn't talk about often. Because what was there to say? We were still happy. Still deeply in love. But there was always that unspoken question lingering between us. Would we ever have a family of our own? While Daniel and I navigated the uncertainties of our future, Lauren's life was flourishing. Her social media career had exploded in ways neither of us had expected. She was working with brands, traveling to places I could only dream of, and sharing every moment with her thousands of followers. And then, she found love. Eric was different from anyone she had ever dated before. He was stable, grounded, the kind of person who brought out the best in her. Their relationship moved fast. Within 2 years, they were married, and for the first time, I saw Lauren genuinely happy in a way she had never been before. I stood by her side on her wedding day, watching as she said, "I do," with tears in her eyes, and I couldn't have been happier for her. We were both married now, both living the lives we had dreamed of in college. And yet, as close as we were, there were things we didn't talk about. She never asked about our struggles with infertility. I never asked about her life online. Some topics were too delicate, too personal. But that changed the day she told me she was pregnant. I still remember the way she looked at me, her eyes wide with excitement as she placed a hand over her stomach. "I wanted you to be the first to know," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. For a moment, I couldn't speak. I was happy for her, of course I was. But I would be lying if I said there wasn't a small, painful pang in my chest. Still, I smiled, pushing my emotions aside. "Lauren, that's amazing," I said, pulling her into a hug. "I am so happy for you." She beamed. "I need you to help me plan the baby shower." And she hesitated, her expression turning serious. "I was hoping you'd be the godmother." I felt my breath hitch. "Me? Who else would it be?" she said, laughing. "You're my best friend. I need you by my side for this." I swallowed the lump in my throat and nodded. "Of course. I'd be honored." She squeezed my hand, oblivious to the storm of emotions I was hiding beneath my smile. That night, I told Daniel the news. "She's asked me to be the godmother," I said, watching his expression carefully. He was quiet for a moment, then he forced a smile. "That's great. Really great." I reached for his hand. "Are you okay?" He let out a small sigh, squeezing my fingers. "Yeah. It's just hard, you know." I nodded, because I didn't know. But we would get through it. Just like we always did. Neither of us could have known that the joy of this new chapter in Lauren's life would soon turn into something neither of us could have ever imagined. Something that would change everything. The baby shower was supposed to be perfect. Lauren had always dreamed of this day, and I wanted to make sure it was everything she had imagined. From the moment she announced her pregnancy, I had thrown myself into planning every detail, the invitations, the decorations, the catering. She had chosen lavender as the theme, her favorite color, and I made sure that every single detail reflected that. Soft purple balloons lined the entrance of the venue, delicate lilac flowers adorned the tables, and even the cupcakes had a light lavender frosting. The air was filled with the scent of vanilla and fresh blooms, and the soft melody of an acoustic playlist played in the background, creating a warm, inviting atmosphere. Daniel and I arrived early to make sure everything was in place. He had been quiet the entire drive, but I didn't push him. I knew today was difficult for him, for both of us really. Being surrounded by baby decorations, watching Lauren's belly grow, hearing everyone talk about motherhood, it was a painful reminder of what we had been trying so hard to have but couldn't. Still, we were here. Because no matter what, Lauren was my best friend. "You okay?" I asked Daniel as he helped set up the last of the decorations. He gave me a small smile, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Yeah, just ready to get through today." I squeezed his hand. "I know. Thank you for being here." He kissed my forehead softly before stepping away to greet some of the other guests who were arriving. Before long, the venue was filled with people, friends, family, coworkers, and, of course, a few social media influencers that Lauren had invited. The energy was lively, the conversations flowing effortlessly. Laughter echoed around the room as guests played baby shower games, took pictures by the photo booth, and admired the beautifully decorated space. Lauren was glowing. Dressed in a flowing lavender dress, she walked around the room like a queen, soaking in the attention, her hands constantly resting on her belly. She was radiant, and as much as there was a small pang in my heart, I was happy for her. "This is perfect," she gushed as she hugged me. "I can't believe you did all this." I smiled, brushing off the compliment. "You deserve it." She grinned before turning to Eric, who stood beside her, looking every bit the proud husband. He wasn't as outgoing as Lauren, but he adored her, and it showed in the way he never strayed too far from her side. All right, everyone. Lauren suddenly clapped her hands together, drawing attention to herself. I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone for coming today. This means the world to me. The crowd clapped, a few people cheering as she smiled brightly. But before we continue, I have a very special announcement to make. I tilted my head, confused. She hadn't mentioned anything about an announcement. Lauren beamed, placing a hand over her stomach. I know you all have been wondering who the father of my baby is, and I think it's finally time to introduce him to you all. The room went silent. I felt my breath catch in my throat as I glanced toward Eric, who looked just as confused as I was. Lauren's eyes sparkled with mischief as she took a deep breath and then, I'd like to introduce the father of my baby, Daniel. My heart stopped. The room was deathly silent. For a moment, I thought I had misheard her, that the noise of the party had distorted her words. But then I saw the reactions, guests exchanging stunned glances, Eric's face going completely pale, and Daniel. Daniel looked frozen. My pulse pounded in my ears as I turned to look at my husband. He looked as if he had just been punched in the gut, his mouth slightly open, eyes wide with horror. Lauren, on the other hand, was smiling. A few guests let out nervous chuckles, unsure of how to react. I felt my entire body go numb. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. My best friend had just announced to a room full of people that my husband was the father of her child. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Everything slowed down, my vision tunneling as the weight of her words crashed over me. I finally found my voice, though it came out hoarse. What did you just say? Lauren burst into laughter. A full, genuine, hysterical laugh. And then she grinned. Oh my God, you should have seen your faces, she giggled, holding her stomach as if she couldn't contain herself. I just stared at her, unable to comprehend what was happening. Then she pointed toward the ceiling. I got everything on camera. Hidden cameras all over the venue. This is gonna go viral. The breath I had been holding rushed out of me in a sharp exhale. A prank. A prank? My hands clenched into fists as the weight of my humiliation settled in. She had planned this. She had set up hidden cameras, filmed our reactions for what? Content? A joke? I could hear some people laughing awkwardly, unsure of how to respond. Others murmured to each other, whispering in confusion. Daniel had gone stiff beside me, his face unreadable. Eric wasn't laughing. He was staring at Lauren as if she were a complete stranger. My skin burned with humiliation. This wasn't just a joke. This was betrayal. I swallowed hard, fighting the sting of tears. Lauren, why would you do that? She waved a hand dismissively. Oh, come on. It was just for fun. You know, for engagement. Reactions like this? People love them. And trust me, it's gonna be hilarious when I post the video. I felt sick. She had turned my baby shower gift to her into a public spectacle. She had used my husband as the punchline to her twisted joke. I looked at Daniel again, seeing the tension in his jaw, the way his hands were clenched at his sides. He was angry. And so was I. Eric took a deep breath before speaking, his voice tight. Lauren, what the hell is wrong with you? Lauren blinked as if she didn't understand why he was upset. Relax, babe. It's just a prank. His expression darkened. Just a prank? You think this is funny? Humiliating your best friend? Humiliating me. Lauren's smile faltered slightly, but she rolled her eyes. Come on, don't be so dramatic. Dramatic? My chest felt tight as I turned away, feeling completely suffocated by the betrayal, by the looks of pity from the guests, by the sheer audacity of what she had done. I thought I knew her. I thought she was my best friend. But right now, as she stood there laughing at my pain, I realized something terrifying. I didn't know her at all. And maybe I never had. I couldn't breathe. The room around me felt too bright, too loud, too suffocating. Laughter still echoed in the air, but it wasn't the joyful kind. It was laced with discomfort, awkwardness, nervous uncertainty. Some guests chuckled out of obligation, but most just shifted uneasily in their seats, their eyes darting between me, Daniel, Eric, and Lauren. Lauren, my best friend. She stood in the center of it all, still giggling, her hand pressed lightly against her swollen belly as if this entire thing was nothing. Just another joke. Just another prank for her audience. I could still hear her words, playing over and over in my head. I'd like to introduce the father of my baby, Daniel. The way she had smiled. The way she had waited for the shock to settle in before dropping the punchline. She had wanted this reaction. Planned for it. She had taken one of the most painful things in my marriage, our struggle with infertility, and twisted it into entertainment. A joke. I felt sick. Daniel was still beside me, but he wasn't speaking. His face was stone, his lips pressed into a thin line, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. I could feel the anger radiating from him, the tension in his body so rigid it felt like he was holding himself back from exploding. Eric, on the other hand, wasn't holding back at all. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he snapped, his voice cutting through the uneasy murmurs. His face was red, his hands shaking slightly as he took a step toward Lauren. Lauren let out an exaggerated sigh, rolling her eyes as if he were the one overreacting. "Oh my God, relax. It was just a prank. A prank. A prank." I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. Eric didn't look amused. If anything, he looked like a man who had just realized something horrifying. Lauren, his voice was low, controlled, but there was an edge of disbelief behind it. "Do you have any idea what you just did?" She scoffed, waving a dismissive hand. "Come on, it's not that serious. It was just for fun. You know, content." Content. That single word made my stomach turn. All of this, our humiliation, our pain, was just a video to her. Something to be posted, to be shared, to be monetized. I swallowed hard, my hands shaking as I forced myself to speak. My voice cracked, and I had to take a breath before continuing. "You filmed this." Lauren gave me a look like I was being unreasonable. "Of course I filmed it. That's the whole point. You should see your face, it's priceless." She let out another laugh, as if she genuinely thought this was funny. A dull roar filled my ears. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. I had spent months planning this baby shower. I had put my heart into making it perfect for her. And she had turned it into this. I looked around the room, seeing the way people were shifting uncomfortably, some avoiding eye contact altogether. The air had shifted, the lightheartedness from before was gone. Even the people who had laughed at first had gone quiet now, sensing that this wasn't something any of us were going to move past. Lauren was still smiling, oblivious to the damage she had caused. Then Daniel spoke. His voice was low, calm, but there was something behind it, something dark. "You really think this is funny?" Lauren's grin faltered slightly, but she recovered quickly. "I mean, come on, Dan. You have to admit, it's kind of funny." Daniel's jaw twitched. "No, it's not." I felt him take a step closer to me, his presence solid, grounding. His voice dropped even lower. "You know what is funny, though? That you actually think this is okay." Lauren frowned, as if she truly couldn't understand why we weren't laughing along with her. "You guys are being way too sensitive." "Sensitive?" Eric's voice was louder now, incredulous. "Lauren, you humiliated your best friend in front of everyone. You humiliated me. You made a joke out of our marriages, out of Daniel's infertility. And you think we're being too sensitive?" Lauren's face darkened slightly at that last part. "Oh, come on. It's not like I meant anything by it." I stared at her, feeling something inside me break. She didn't get it. She never got it. For years, I had stood by her side, supporting her through everything, every breakup, every career change, every moment of self-doubt. I had celebrated her victories, comforted her in her failures, loved her like a sister. And in return, she had used my pain for entertainment. I shook my head, barely recognizing my own voice when I spoke. "I can't believe you would do this to me." Lauren's lips parted slightly, like she was about to argue, but something in my expression must have stopped her. For the first time, she hesitated. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her eyes flicked to Eric, then to Daniel, then back to me. But she didn't apologize. She didn't fix it. She just crossed her arms over her chest and muttered, "It's not that big of a deal." Eric let out a bitter laugh. "Wow." He ran a hand through his hair, shaking his head. "I don't even know who you are right now." Lauren's eyes flashed with irritation. "Oh, don't be so dramatic, Eric. It's not like you were the one embarrassed." That was the final straw. Eric's face went blank, his body going still. Then, very quietly, he said, "I'm done." Lauren blinked. "What?" I said, "I'm done." His voice was steady, but I could hear the emotion beneath it. He was furious. Lauren let out a nervous laugh, glancing around the room as if expecting someone to back her up. "Oh, come on. You're not serious." But Eric wasn't joking. "I won't be with someone who thinks this is okay," he said, shaking his head. "I won't be with someone who treats people like props in her little social media circus. I won't be with someone who would do this to her best friend." Lauren's face paled. "Eric." He didn't wait for her to finish. He turned and walked out of the venue, leaving her standing there, her mouth slightly open, her hands twitching at her sides. Lauren turned to me, eyes wide with shock. "Are you really just going to let him walk away?" I stared at her, my heart breaking in ways I hadn't even thought possible. "I think you should ask yourself why he's walking away in the first place," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. And then I turned to Daniel. He met my gaze, his expression softening for just a second. "Let's go," he murmured. Without another word, we walked out. And for the first time in my life, I left Lauren behind. The silence in the car was suffocating. Daniel sat beside me, gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles had turned white. His jaw was clenched, his lips pressed into a thin line, his entire body rigid with tension. He hadn't spoken a single word since we left the venue. Neither had I. Because what was there to say? What words could possibly fill the gaping hole that Lauren had just torn into our lives? I stared out the window, watching the city lights blur past, my stomach still twisted in knots. My hands trembled slightly in my lap, the ghost of my earlier humiliation still crawling under my skin. I could still hear the laughter, still see the smug satisfaction on Lauren's face as she had waited for us to react, as if our pain was just another moment for her to capture. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to block it out. But it was useless. "Unbelievable," Daniel finally muttered under his breath. His voice was low, controlled, but there was an unmistakable fury simmering beneath it. I turned to look at him. She really did that." My voice cracked on the last word. He exhaled sharply through his nose, his grip tightening on the wheel. "Yeah, she did." I swallowed hard, my throat dry. I don't even know what to feel right now." Daniel finally glanced at me, his expression softening just slightly. "You don't have to feel anything right now." His voice was calmer now, more measured. "You just need to breathe." I let out a shaky breath, nodding. "Breathe. Right." I forced myself to take slow, deep inhales, trying to steady my heartbeat, but the emotions were too tangled: hurt, anger, betrayal, embarrassment. And then, like a dam breaking, the words spilled out of me. I spent months planning that baby shower. Months. I wanted it to be perfect for her. I wanted her to feel loved, to feel special. And she turned it into this. Daniel's grip on the wheel tightened again. "She humiliated you. She humiliated us." I didn't miss the way his body tensed at that. His voice was sharper this time. "She made a joke out of our infertility." The weight of his words settled over us like a suffocating blanket. Our infertility. The one wound that had never fully healed, the silent ache that sat between us, always present even when we didn't acknowledge it. And Lauren had taken it, something so personal, so painful, and twisted it into a joke. "She put cameras in that venue," Daniel said, his voice dangerously low now. "She planned this. She knew how much this would hurt. And she did it anyway." I felt my throat tighten, hot tears burning behind my eyes. I can't believe I ever called her my best friend. Daniel reached over and took my hand, his touch warm, grounding. You deserved better than that. I squeezed his fingers, my voice barely a whisper. So did you. The rest of the drive home was quiet. When we finally pulled into the driveway, neither of us moved. Daniel let out a slow breath, rubbing his temple. You don't have to respond to her, he said suddenly. I frowned. What? She's going to call. Or text. Or show up. You don't have to deal with it tonight. I hadn't even thought about that. But of course, he was right. Lauren wasn't the type to let things go. She would come up with some excuse, some way to twist this around. But I didn't want to hear it. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. I nodded. Okay. Daniel gave my hand another gentle squeeze before we finally stepped out of the car and went inside. Later that night, the messages started. At first, they were light. Lauren, hey, you left so fast. Call me. Lauren, okay, seriously, why are you ignoring me? Then, when I didn't answer, they became more insistent. Lauren, you're really gonna be mad over a prank? Come on. Lauren, it wasn't that serious. People do these all the time. Lauren, I can't believe you're acting like this. You're my best friend. I stared at the screen, my chest tightening with every word. She didn't get it. She still didn't get it. Daniel, who was sitting beside me on the couch, glanced over at my phone. She's already trying to minimize it, isn't she? I nodded. She doesn't think she did anything wrong. He let out a humorless laugh. Of course she doesn't. I clenched my jaw, debating whether to reply. But before I could decide, another message popped up. And this one. This one made something snap inside me. Lauren. You of all people should be supporting me right now. I'm the one who's pregnant. Do you have any idea how stressful today was for me? And instead of being there for me, you walked out. That was really selfish. Selfish. Selfish? My hands shook as I stared at the message, my pulse hammering. Daniel noticed immediately. What did she say? I turned my phone toward him. His expression darkened as he read it. She actually thinks you should be apologizing? His voice was full of disbelief. I swallowed, my throat burning with unshed tears. She's not sorry. She never was. Daniel's fingers brushed against my arm, a silent offer of comfort. So what are you going to do? I exhaled slowly, steadying myself. Then, with a sense of finality, I started typing. Me, Lauren, I need time. You don't get to hurt me like that, and then expect me to just move on like nothing happened. I'll reach out when I'm ready. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Lauren's response came almost instantly. Lauren, are you serious? I didn't reply. Instead, I turned off my phone, placed it face down on the table, and leaned back against the couch, closing my eyes. Daniel pulled me into his arms, pressing a soft kiss against my hair. I'm proud of you. I let out a shaky breath. Then why does it hurt so much? Because you loved her, he said simply. And now you're realizing she might not have ever deserved it. I swallowed hard, my chest aching. Maybe he was right. Maybe I had spent years giving my heart to someone who never truly valued it. And maybe it was time to let her go. I woke up the next morning with a dull ache behind my eyes, the kind that comes from crying too much, too late into the night. For the first few seconds, there was a brief moment of peace, a stillness where I hadn't yet remembered. But then, like a slow-building storm, reality came crashing back in. Lauren, the baby shower, the prank. I swallowed hard, sitting up in bed. Daniel was already awake, sitting at the edge of the mattress, scrolling through his phone. He looked exhausted, his shoulders tense, his expression unreadable. I hesitated before speaking. Did you sleep at all? He let out a quiet exhale. Not really. He turned slightly to face me, his dark eyes scanning my face. You. I shook my head. There was too much swirling in my mind, too much anger, too much hurt. I had spent half the night replaying every moment of yesterday, wondering how things had gone so wrong. Wondering if I had missed the signs. Had I been blind? Had Lauren always been this person? Or had she changed so gradually that I hadn't noticed? Daniel reached for my hand, squeezing gently. She messaged again. I tensed. What did she say? Instead of answering, he handed me his phone. My heart pounded as I read the texts. Lauren, I don't get why you're still mad. Lauren, are you really going to let one stupid joke ruin our friendship? Lauren, I need you right now. I'm pregnant, remember? I thought you actually cared. My stomach twisted, bile rising in my throat. I had cared. More than she would ever know. And yet, here she was, twisting the knife even deeper, refusing to take responsibility for what she had done. I set Daniel's phone down and reached for my own, unlocking it for the first time since last night. Unsurprisingly, there were more messages from her. Some were the same manipulative guilt trips she had sent Daniel. Others were passive-aggressive, accusing me of being petty for not responding. And then, there was a final message, one that made my blood run cold. Lauren, fine. If you want to be this way, then I guess I finally see the truth. You were never really my friend. You're just jealous of me. I stared at the words, my breath caught in my chest. Jealous. She thought I was jealous of her? Daniel must have seen the look on my face because he leaned in slightly. What did she say? Wordlessly, I handed him my phone. He read the message, his jaw tightening. Wow! I clenched my fists. I can't even wrap my head around this. I've always supported her. I've always been there for her. And she thinks I'm jealous. Daniel set my phone aside and turned to me fully, his expression serious. Because she doesn't see friendship the way you do. To her, it's about competition. About being the center of attention. And when you don't play into that, she turns on you. I swallowed hard, my throat burning. How had I not seen it before? For years, I had been there for Lauren through every high and low in her life. I had celebrated her wins, comforted her through her losses. I had loved her unconditionally. And yet, the moment I didn't give her what she wanted, the moment I didn't forgive her without question, she had thrown everything back in my face. It wasn't friendship. It had never been. Not the way I had thought. A lump formed in my throat. I think I'm done. Daniel searched my face, his thumb brushing against my palm. Are you sure? I nodded, my vision blurring. Yeah. I can't do this anymore. I can't keep making excuses for her. I can't keep pretending like this friendship is real when I'm the only one who ever truly cared. Daniel exhaled slowly, then let her go. Tears burned my eyes, but I forced them down. It shouldn't hurt this much. But it did. With a deep breath, I picked up my phone, hovered over Lauren's contact for a brief moment, then blocked her. The moment I did, a strange sense of relief washed over me. Not happiness, not peace, but relief. Like I had finally put down something heavy that I had been carrying for far too long. Daniel pulled me into his arms, pressing a soft kiss to the top of my head. I'm proud of you. I closed my eyes, sinking into his warmth. I just wish it didn't have to be like this. I know, he murmured. But you deserve better. And for the first time, I believed him. The fallout happened faster than I expected. By midday, Lauren had realized I had blocked her. And she wasn't happy. At first, she tried to reach me through mutual friends, spinning the story in her favor. She claimed I was overreacting, that I was being cruel by cutting her off during her pregnancy. Then, when that didn't work, she turned angry. She started posting vague messages online, passive-aggressive jabs about fake friends and how some people can't handle a joke. I ignored them. I had nothing left to say to her. But then, she crossed the final line. She messaged Daniel. And what she said made my blood boil. I was in the kitchen when he let out a sharp breath, staring at his phone like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. I frowned. What is it? He hesitated, his face darkening. Then he turned the screen toward me. My stomach dropped. Lauren, I guess it makes sense that your wife can't handle a joke. She's probably too bitter about the fact that she'll never give you a baby. It must be so hard for you, Daniel, being married to someone who can't even do the one thing a woman is supposed to do. I went still. Everything inside me froze, my breath catching in my throat. Daniel's grip on his phone tightened, his entire body vibrating with restrained fury. I felt something inside me snap. I turned away, my hands shaking as I grabbed my laptop. "What are you doing?" Daniel asked, his voice tight. I didn't look at him as I started typing, my hands moving with a newfound sense of clarity. "I'm canceling every single thing I had planned for her." Lauren had already burned the bridge. Now I was setting fire to the remains. I canceled the gifts I had ordered. I deleted the baby registry I had helped her set up. And then, the final blow. I called the caterer, the one I had personally booked and paid a deposit for. "Hello?" "Yes, hi," I said, my voice steady. "I won't be covering the remainder of the payment for the baby shower. If Lauren wants your services, she'll have to handle it herself." There was a pause. Then, the polite but firm response. "Understood." When I hung up, I turned back to Daniel. His gaze was unreadable, but then, slowly, a small, approving smile tugged at the corner of his lips. "That," he said, "was hot." Despite everything, I let out a small laugh. Because for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel weak. I felt free. I had thought blocking Lauren would bring me peace. That cutting her out of my life would be enough to finally breathe. But I had underestimated just how far she would go. She didn't take the hint. Even after I canceled her baby shower expenses, even after I erased every trace of our friendship from my life, she refused to let me go quietly. And it all became clear when I woke up to another message. Not from her this time. From Eric. "Eric, call me when you can. You need to see what she just posted." A sick feeling settled in my stomach as I read his words. Daniel, still half asleep beside me, stirred when he heard me sigh. "What's wrong?" I swallowed hard. Eric messaged me. Daniel sat up immediately, his expression darkening. "What did he say?" I turned my phone toward him, showing him the text. His eyes narrowed. "Whatever it is, you don't have to look at it." But I did have to look. Because if Lauren was saying something about me, if she was spreading lies, I needed to know. With shaking fingers, I tapped on Eric's contact and called him. He picked up on the second ring. "Hey," he said, his voice tight. "I wasn't sure if I should send this to you, but I figured you'd rather see it now before it gets worse." I sat up straighter. "See what?" He exhaled heavily. "Check her latest Instagram post." My chest tightened. Daniel gave me a concerned look, but I ignored it as I opened Instagram and searched for Lauren's account. And there it was. A brand new post already filled with thousands of likes and comments. A photo of Lauren, cradling her pregnant belly, looking heartbreakingly vulnerable. The caption? "When you're pregnant and your best friend turns on you because she can't have kids of her own. Broken heart, some people will never be happy for you, no matter what. Hashtag fake friends, hashtag betrayal." I felt like I had been punched. My vision blurred at the edges as I reread the words, bile rising in my throat. Daniel saw it too. His entire body went rigid beside me. "Are you kidding me?" I could barely hear him past the roaring in my ears. She had made it public. She had taken my deepest wound, my infertility, something I had confided in her about privately, and turned it into a weapon against me. And her followers were eating it up. Comments flooded the post, waves of sympathy washing over her. "OMG, I can't believe she did that to you. You don't deserve this stress, mama. Some people are just bitter when they see others happy. Cut her off, girl. You're better off without jealous people in your life." Jealous. Bitter. Fake friend. That's what they were calling me. And Lauren? She was basking in it. I knew her well enough to recognize what she was doing. This was damage control, her way of shifting the narrative. She knew she had crossed a line with that prank. She knew she had lost me, lost Eric, lost the support of the people who had actually known her. So she did what she did best. She turned herself into the victim. I was shaking. Rage, hurt, betrayal, it all crashed into me at once. Daniel reached for my phone, his jaw tight. "Do not respond." I looked at him, my breath uneven. "Daniel." "I'm serious," he said, his voice firm. "That's what she wants. She wants you to engage. She wants a reaction so she can keep milking this for attention." I clenched my fists, my body vibrating with fury. "She's making me look like a villain." She's making herself look like a fool, Daniel corrected. And anyone who actually knows you, knows the truth, won't believe her. I wanted to believe that. But the damage had already been done. Hours passed and the post exploded. More comments. More engagement. Lauren was soaking up the attention, replying to sympathetic messages, throwing subtle jabs without directly mentioning my name. I could feel the way people were turning against me, even ones who didn't even know me. Strangers were painting me as some bitter, jealous woman who had abandoned her pregnant best friend. And the worst part? Lauren was thriving on it. But she had underestimated something. She had underestimated Eric. Because by that evening, he had enough. And he made it known. Daniel and I were eating a quiet dinner when my phone buzzed with another message from Eric. Eric, check my Instagram. Let's see if she wants to play games now. Confused, I clicked on his profile. And there it was. A post. A screenshot of Lauren's post, her dramatic, manipulative caption in full display, right next to a screenshot of the text she had sent Daniel. The one where she mocked our infertility. Eric's caption? Let's talk about what really happened. Since my ex-wife wants to lie to thousands of people and play the victim, let's show them what kind of person she really is. This is how she spoke about her best friend behind the scenes. This is who she really is. Good luck spinning this one. My fork clattered onto my plate. Daniel let out a low whistle. Damn. I blinked, still processing. He actually posted it? Daniel smirked. Oh, he definitely posted it. I refreshed the page. The fallout had begun. Lauren's followers, so quick to defend her, were now seeing the full picture. The comments on her post had shifted. Wait, she actually said that about her best friend? How do you go from fake friends to calling someone less of a man because of infertility? Wow! I was on your side, but this is gross. And then, under Eric's post, hundreds of messages, people turning against her. Her real face had been exposed. And there was no coming back from it. That night, I expected Lauren to lash out. To post some kind of dramatic, I was taken out of context speech. But instead, silence. For the first time, Lauren was silent. And that said everything. I let out a slow breath, setting my phone aside. Daniel wrapped an arm around my waist, his lips brushing against my temple. How do you feel? I thought about it. Then, for the first time since this nightmare started, I felt myself smile. Like karma finally did its job. I had spent years defending Lauren, making excuses for her behavior, brushing off the small moments of selfishness, the red flags I had ignored because I loved her. But now, as I watched the slow-motion wreckage of her public downfall unfold, I felt nothing. No guilt. No sadness. No desire to reach out and make things right. Because for the first time, I realized there was nothing left to fix. Lauren had burned that bridge all on her own. And now? She was finally facing the consequences. The fallout from Eric's post was immediate. Lauren, once the golden girl of her social media circle, was being dragged by the very audience she had cultivated. The comments flooded in first in a slow trickle, then in a full-on tidal wave of outrage. So you humiliate your best friend at your baby shower, then turn around and call her bitter because of infertility? What the hell is wrong with you? You're seriously the villain in your own story. Imagine losing your marriage, your best friend, and your reputation all in the same week. Maybe reflect on why that happened. Lauren tried to fight back at first. She deleted comments, blocked people, tried to play the victim. But the internet never forgets. Screenshots of her cruel message to Daniel were everywhere, circulating in online groups, Twitter threads, even gossip forums. Brands she had worked with started distancing themselves. Followers who had once adored her were now openly calling her out. And Eric? He wasn't done. I wasn't following Lauren anymore, but Eric was keeping me updated. She's spiraling, he said over the phone a few days later. She tried to post some teary-eyed apology, but no one's buying it. I let out a small breath, rubbing my temple. Did she actually apologize, or was it just damage control? Eric snorted. She didn't even mention you or Daniel directly. Just a lot of, I made mistakes, but people are being so mean to me bullshit. I wasn't surprised. Lauren had never been one to take responsibility. Daniel, who had been listening from across the room, raised an eyebrow. So she's still playing the victim? Eric sighed. Yeah, but it's not working anymore. I leaned back against the couch, processing. For years, Lauren had thrived on drama. She had built her entire online presence on relatable chaos, oversharing every fight, every breakup, every scandal in her life. But now, for the first time, she was the bad guy. And she didn't know how to handle it. Days passed. Then weeks. Lauren's online presence crumbled. Brands quietly pulled out of deals. Her follower count dropped by the thousands. Her engagement plummeted. People weren't interacting with her posts anymore, at least not in the way she wanted. Instead of praise and admiration, her comment sections were filled with backlash, people demanding accountability. Then came the final blow. Eric filed for divorce. He didn't just leave. He didn't just threaten to leave. He followed through. And Lauren? She panicked. She blew up his phone with messages, sent long, rambling emails about how they could work things out, how she needed him. But Eric was done. She thought I was bluffing, he told me one evening. She thought I'd calm down and come back, like I always did. He shook his head. Not this time. His voice was firm, unwavering. I can't be with someone like that. Not after what she did. Not after how she treated you. I swallowed hard, feeling an unexpected wave of emotion. I'm sorry, I said quietly. Eric gave me a small, sad smile. Don't be. I should have left a long time ago. He was right. Lauren had always treated him like an accessory, a supporting character in her story. And now, for the first time, he was reclaiming his own life. And I was doing the same. Lauren reached out one final time. It was late at night, nearly 2 in the morning, when my phone buzzed with an email. I stared at her name in my inbox, my stomach twisting. Daniel, who was sitting beside me in bed, saw my hesitation. Are you going to read it? I exhaled slowly. I think I have to. I clicked it open. And as I read her words, any last trace of nostalgia, of guilt, of anything I had once felt for her, vanished. The email wasn't an apology. It was angry. Lauren lashed out, claiming I had ruined her life, that I had turned Eric against her, that I had destroyed her reputation. And then, the final dagger. Honestly, I never even liked you that much. I only kept you around because you made me look better. You were the sad little workaholic who never had any fun, and I was the cool, exciting one. Admit it, you always envied me. My hands shook slightly as I finished reading. Not from sadness. Not even from anger. Just disbelief. Daniel had been reading over my shoulder. He let out a low breath. Jesus. I shut my laptop, my heart strangely steady. I had wasted so much of my life caring about this person. And this was who she had always been. A selfish, cruel, shallow person who had never valued me the way I had valued her. I met Daniel's gaze. I'm done. He nodded. I know. I blocked her email. Then, for the first time since this nightmare started, I let her go. Lauren lost everything. Her marriage. Her reputation. Her friendships. With no career left, no financial stability, she ended up moving back in with her parents. And me? I moved forward. Lauren had spent years making me feel like I wasn't enough. Like my life was less because I wasn't the one in the spotlight, because I wasn't the one with the perfect, curated social media presence. But in the end, I was the one who had real love, real friendships, real happiness. Lauren's entire world had been built on illusion. And illusions always crumble. I had lost my best friend. But I had found something far more valuable. Myself. The first morning without Lauren in my life felt quiet. Not empty. Not sad. Just quiet. For years, she had occupied so much space in my world. Whether it was constant texts, spontaneous plans, or the emotional weight of managing her dramas, she had always been there. But now, she was gone. And I was still here. Still standing. Still breathing. And, surprisingly, I felt okay. The weeks that followed were filled with healing. Daniel and I spent more time together, reconnecting in a way we hadn't in a long time. There was no longer an unspoken sadness hanging between us, no more wounds being poked and prodded by someone who had never truly cared about our happiness. One evening, as we sat curled up on the couch, watching an old movie, Daniel reached for my hand. "You seem lighter," he murmured. I glanced at him, surprised. "Lighter?" He nodded. "Like, for the first time in a long time, you're not carrying someone else's problems on your back." I blinked, letting his words settle. He was right. Without Lauren, there was no longer this constant, exhausting cycle of putting out fires, of managing emotions that weren't my own, of bending over backward to keep someone happy who had never done the same for me. I had spent years giving to Lauren. And now, for the first time, I was choosing myself. I squeezed Daniel's hand. "I feel lighter." He smiled, pressing a kiss to my forehead. "Good." Eric kept his distance for a while, dealing with his own recovery from the disaster that had been his marriage. But one afternoon, I got a text from him. "Eric, you free for coffee? I think we both deserve a life update." I smiled at the message, warmth spreading through me. Eric had been another casualty of Lauren's destruction, but through it all, we had found something unexpected, understanding. I met him at a quiet cafe, one that wasn't too crowded, the kind of place where people didn't stare at their phones the entire time. When I walked in, he was already there, 2 coffees on the table. I slid into the seat across from him, offering a small smile. "You remembered my order." He smirked. "I was married to Lauren for 2 years. Do you know how many times I had to hear her complain about you ordering the same boring coffee?" I laughed, shaking my head. "She never let me live with that." His smirk softened. "Yeah, well, guess we're both free now." We talked for hours about how different life was without her, about how much calmer everything felt. "She always made me feel like I wasn't enough," Eric admitted at one point, stirring his coffee absent-mindedly. "Like I had to prove my worth just to be in her life." I exhaled slowly. Yeah, that was Lauren's power, making people feel small so she could feel big. But now, she had no one left to belittle. And we were finally free. Daniel and I went on vacation a month later. It was something we had talked about doing for years, but life had always gotten in the way. Or, more accurately, Lauren had always gotten in the way. She had a way of making everything about her, even our most personal moments. Every anniversary, every milestone, she had inserted herself, intentionally or not. But not this time. This time, it was just us. We spent a week by the ocean, waking up to the sound of waves, holding hands as we walked along the shore, laughing over drinks at sunset. One evening, as we sat on the balcony of our hotel room, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Daniel turned to me. "You know," he said softly, "for a while, I was afraid we'd never get back here." I frowned slightly. "Back where?" He gestured between us. "To this. Us. Without the weight of everything else." My chest ached at his words. I reached for his hand, lacing my fingers with his. "We never left." Daniel smiled, but there was something deeper in his gaze, something grateful. And in that moment, I knew we were going to be okay. Better than okay. We were stronger. Lauren still lurked in the background of my life, but only as a distant echo. Eric had finalized the divorce. She had lost her platform. She had lost the audience that had once adored her. And from what I had heard, she was struggling. But I felt nothing for her anymore. No anger. No sadness. Just distance. She had made her choices. And I had made mine. Months later, I got one last message from her. A simple, empty apology. No real acknowledgement of what she had done. No sincerity. Just a last-ditch attempt to keep me tethered to her. I didn't respond. I didn't even read it all the way through. I just deleted it. Because Lauren was my past. And my future? My future was mine.